Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to my session. Today, we are going to learn about Power Apps Virtual React Component. If you see, we have Power Apps. We are going to use an SDK. It's going to be the Nutrient SDK, and we are going to use React. Lots of stuff to learn, okay? And it's going to be interesting. So if you are not a Power Apps developer, don't be demotivated. Okay, that's the first thing I'll say. I'm not a full-fledged React developer, but I know to use prompts. And if you don't know to use prompt, you should go back to the previous session and look at Sunil's session because he spoke about using prompt. One golden rule that I'll tell you, ever since ChatGPT came into my life, okay, it's like a love story, right? I'm telling like ChatGPT came into my life. I started writing more code. Okay. I started writing more code. It empowers me and I go ahead and create more code samples, etc., which helps. So that being said, I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Clavin. I'm a leader at the ppug.org. I'm a Power Platform super user. I'm a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. And most importantly, I'm a solutions consultant at Nutrient. I go ahead and run my blog. It's clavinfernandes.wordpress.com. I also blog at nutrient.io, so you'll find my blogs there as well. I blog mainly on Power Platform, both the places, and I run my YouTube channel. So it's YouTube, and if you type in Clavin Fernandes, not Calvin, Clavin, you will find me there. Okay, I have been a Power Platform super user for I don't know how many years, maybe 3 or 4 as of now. Okay. That being said, what are we going to build? This is what we are going to build, but I'll show you actually in Power Apps how it will look like. So let me find my correct browser. Okay, this is my Power Apps, right? This is the out-of-box PDF viewer. I click on it, right? It will load a document in the PDF viewer. Boring. What can I do with it? I can only view the document. Such a pain, such a pain. What I want to do is reduce the pain. Okay. When I say reduce the pain, let's look at something else. Let's look at something exciting, right? What I'm going to show you is a PDF viewer out here. It's a PCF component. We are going to build this together. We are going to build this component in such a way that when somebody gets into Power Apps, they can go ahead and in fact sign the document right in Power Apps, and what you can do is you can save the document back in the data source of your choice. Isn't that going to be interesting? We are going to use React, we are going to use the Nutrient SDK, and we are going to use the PCF tool, okay, or the PCF Power Apps component framework. So this is what we are going to build. If I go back to my slides real quick, what we are going to do, we are going to pass in a base 64-bit string. We are going to convert the base 64-bit string into an array buffer, render it using the Nutrient SDK or the Nutrient Web Standalone, and output, when somebody clicks on the save button, there will be a base 64 output, right? That's what we are going to do. Now, that being said, let's get back to, I want to show you this. Let's get back to the component. So first and foremost, when I click on the component, these are the input parameters. Take a note of it: base 64 PDF document, viewer height, and the viewer width, right? And if I want to go ahead and have the output, I can reference. So let's go ahead and do that, by the way. So if I want to go ahead and have the output, what I can do is I can reference the name of the component, and we are going to build this. So it's known as viewer2 dot, and if you see, it will be PDF document, right? We can go ahead and reference back. When I click on the play button and when I go and click on save, you see that it's outputting a base 64-bit string. So that's what we are going to build. Now, that's what we are going to build. So let's get into the slides again and let's look at the prerequisites. So the first prerequisite, if you want to do, is the Visual Studio Code. You need to have a code editor. I have one, so let me quickly pull up the code editor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder, right? I'm going to give it a name, Nutrient PCF Viewer, right? And I'm going to open this folder in Visual Studio Code. You can actually right click and just say open in code. Once you go ahead and open in code, the code editor is open and I'll drag it on here. That's the first prerequisite. The second prerequisite is that you need to have Power Platform tools installed. So for the Power Platform tools, you can search for the extension. It's known as Power Platform Tools. Go ahead and install it. I already have it. I'll click on the terminal, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to type a command out here. So just waiting for my terminal up and working. Till it's up and working, you also need the build tool, right? I'll pray to the demo god because today I think the demo gods are a bit sluggish with me and they are actually, I had to press enter, 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 and it just went into so many things. Okay, but let's pray. Demo god, please help me. And let's see. I'll type in pack, right? I'll type in pack. What does pack stands for? Power Apps CLI. Okay, that's what I think it stands for. If you think that it stands for something else, comment or let us know, right? So here you see that I have pack, and these are the commands that you get with pack, right? This is the Power Platform CLI. You also need the visual, you need the build tools. Okay, I'll not say Visual Studio build tools. I usually tell that it's a developer prompt. Why do I say that? Because I have Visual Studio installed. At this point, I have Visual Studio Community installed, and I can use this to go ahead and build my application, right? Now, that being said, you also need to have Node installed. So just go ahead and install the version of Node. So Node dash dash version. You can install the latest version of Node. I have 18.20. I think the minimum would be 16. That is what you need to go ahead and do the development. Now that you have this prerequisites in place, what I'm going to do, I'm going to save up some time out here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to type in, I'm not going to type in, let's say that I'm going to paste in a command, right? It's Friday. I want to be very cautious about the time, right? I'm going to type a command. If it's not visible, I'll read it out. It's pack, PAC, PCF. Initialize the component. My component name is the nutrient document editor. And NS stands for namespace, T stands for field, FW stands for framework. We are going to use React as a framework, and we are going to do an npm install, right? At this point, let Visual Studio Code do its magic, 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 magic. And what I'll do is that I will go back to the slides, right? We spoke about all the prerequisites that are required. You need to have it. Go ahead and set it up if you are planning to do PCF development. So we set PCF, PCF, PCF. What PCF stands for? PCF stands for Power Apps Component Framework. It's a framework which helps developer build Power Apps, right? That's what it is. So code components are, as I told you, you write some code. We are going to write some code. We are going to use ChatGPT. We are going to use AI. I'm not going to bluff that I'm going to write the code all by my own. I am proud that we have AI and we should use it, right? If you're not using it, you're missing out on the fun. Use AI. So I think it's more about an AI session, this, right? I'm just praising AI, less about PCA, but yeah, you can write code. You can help, AI can help you. So code components are a type of components that you can import in your Power Apps as a solution. You can also export it to different environments. So you can create the component, however, use it for in multiple environments. This is how the standard code component used to look like. We are not going to build this. Why are we not going to build this? Because this is less performant. Okay. If you look at this, this is actually like every component will have its own copy of React and Fluent UI. Do you want to do that? Nah, I'm not going to do that. Also, these code components were built in HTML, right? And JavaScript and TypeScript. You know, the world loves React. It is performant, and we are going to use React as well. This is how a standard code component would look like. We would create a container, right? Create a container and then append the child to the container and then work out HTML. This is how the new React component looks like. React and Fluent UI is being shared between the components. They are more performant. They run quickly and you write less code. If you know React, you know that React will help you write much less code if you're using a functional component, right? So what this React component is made up of? What are the benefits? One of the benefit I told you, it's better performant, it manages memory better, it uses the React virtual DOM, and it is just fast rather than having each component having its own React version of Fluent UI and React. You will just be using a shared one. I would say this is my tips. It's more performant, it's easier to maintain, and it's scalable, right? So that being said, let's go back and look at our component. So we all want to write code, right? This is how it would look like. So when I create the component is actually ready. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually install another prerequisite. The prerequisite, I need to find it. The prerequisite would be the Nutrient SDK. Okay, we are using the Nutrient SDK for this particular demo. I'm going to copy this. So what does the Nutrient SDK do? It helps you with building a client-side viewer, right? It is secure. Documents are always on the client side. And it also supports Office documents. We are going to focus on PDFs, but you can also render Office documents. It's also customizable. If you look at this, it has got some basic code out here, but I'm going to take you to another article which will help us write more better code. I'm going to say npm I stands for install, and I'm going to install the Nutrient SDK. I'll go back out here and we'll look at the project structure, right? We'll look at the project structure. So while this is getting installed, I'll quickly take you to the project structure. So here you see that you have node modules. What are node modules? Node modules is basically used as a prerequisite. In this case, we just went ahead and installed the Nutrient SDK. We are going to use this. If you're using a third-party SDK or a third-party library, you will do an npm install library name. In this case, I'm using the Nutrient SDK. You'll find other things out here which might be known to you, such as Babel, ESLint, CSS loader, etc., which you might want to use in your project. So these are the prerequisites. The real magic happens in this folder, but we'll get back to this folder in a minute, right? Git ignore, if you are using a code repository, if you want to ignore some things, this is where you will put your git ignore. ESLint file, right? ESLint file is basically a set of rules, right? ESLint provides a set of coding rules which helps you structure your code better. But at times you might break some rules. And if you break these rules, what you can do is that you can turn the rules off, right? You can do it out here. PCF proj project is used to build your project. Package-log.json is similar to package.json. Package.json tells you what dependencies your project has. Your project has got React dependencies. You have a Nutrient dependency. Most importantly, if you see, it uses React 16.14.0. The latest version is 19. Power Apps component framework is catching up with React. You have to use React 16. So if there's a component which is compatible with React 19, so you might get some problems, okay? Be a bit cautious about it. And Fluent UI, if you're using it, it is 9.46.2. So PCF config, it is the PCF configuration. There's not much. We just reference an out folder, and TS config is basically the TypeScript compiler rules. Now, that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an npm run build, right? Let's build this project. Now, coming back to the main particular folder. The first file that I want to talk about is none other than the manifest file, right? The manifest file is the file which goes ahead and provides metadata about your control. What is the name of your metadata, right? That's the display name here. What is the namespace that you're going to use? What is the description? What is the type of component? It's a virtual component. You can go ahead and reference external services. You can go ahead and use external domains. In our case, we are not going to do that. Okay, for now, we are not going to do that. You can have external domains, as I told you. Not going to do that. I'm trying to clean up the file. Now, these are the properties in the property pane. Now, if you remember, if I go back actually to the slides, or not to the slides, let me go back to the component itself that I was showing you. When I clicked on this particular component, these are the input fields that we need to go ahead and provide, right? Behind the scene, if you're guessing from where this base 64 comes in, I have a Power Automate, which goes ahead and converts the file into a base 64, right? And I respond to Power App. And that response is hooked up here to the document. So if you're getting confused with that, that is where it is coming from. And it is hooked up in such a way that I have a button out here. It sets the variable. Okay, it's the response of the Power Automate out here. Now, that being said, I want to create some input parameters, these input parameters. Where do I create them? I create them here at this place. Okay, so let me quickly create some input parameters. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit more details because this is important. I'm going to remove this input parameter. I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to paste these parameters. So each parameter will have a name, right? Will have a type, which can be single line of text. It can be a whole number, right? If you see it's a whole number. It can be of single line of text or email and much more. And then there are two types of parameters, input and output. Input are bound, output is output. Output is the response when you process something in your Power Apps and you pass it back so that you can further use it. That's what output stands for. At this point, if I do an npm run build, it will build it. And what we are going to do next is that we are going to go ahead and see it in the workbench. Yes, you can debug this locally. Power Apps goes ahead and provides that functionality for you. Okay, that's the most important bit. So it provides you a local workbench. Now that it is built, what I can do is, I should stop using the up arrow. I'll say npm start watch. I want to watch my component, right? Now, when I do an npm start watch, okay, when I do this command, you will see something happening. Or you might not see something happening because it will happen on my different screen. But yeah, luckily it happened on the screen itself. If you see, I have my component, right? And it created these properties. If you see the input properties, and we also have an output property, right? We have these properties that are being created. It has been created in the control manifest.input file. Now let's say that you want to know what other properties are supported. I'll do a control S, right? And here it gives me error. It's red. That red stands for error, right? At least when you see it in the terminal. I freak out when I see red. I used to do PowerShell in the past. I used to think that I did something terribly wrong. But in this case, you didn't do something terribly wrong. What you have done is that you have introduced an error so that you can find the types out here. In this case, you will see that I have corrected the error. It started rendering again. You can have objects, you can have lookups, you can have emails, you can have tickers, you can have multiple things out here that you can use in type. Okay, you can have required true or false, right? If it's required true or false. Similarly, you can have complex attributes which look like this. That's something that you can have. I'm going to remove this complex attribute. Let's keep it simple for this demo. Here it tells you the order. So what will be the first file that it will load? It will load the index.txt file. If you want to have custom CSS, you will have the custom CSS being loaded. You need to uncomment this though. Then it will load the Fluent UI. In this case, we don't want to load much. And finally, if you're working with Dynamics, you might use web APIs, you might use utilities, etc., etc. If you want to learn more about this, you need to go ahead and let us know, respond to my email or ping me on LinkedIn, and I can do another session on how we can create something related with web API. In this case, let's keep it simple. So this is how our final file will look like. My computer is making some weird sounds. So I'm going to say terminate, and let's keep the demo going, right? Or let's say I'm doing the demo and my computer burst, boof, right? That's not something that we want to happen. We want to complete the demo. So here, if you see, I have got the hello world.tsx file. This is our main component. This is where the real magic will happen. We will write our React code in this file. However, another important file, which actually is very important, it's going to be the index.ts file. The index.ts file is the main heart or the core of the PCF component. It has got four important methods, right? First and foremost, it is a class type React component. Don't be worried. You can create a functional component and you can go ahead and reference it here. The first method, the most important one, is initialization. What does initialization do? Any guesses? You should guess it. It is used to initialize the project. It kicks off your control. So this is the first thing that will load, right? Notify output change. When the output changes, when something changes, notify it such that we can go ahead and pass it back in the get outputs method. So the output is basically returning to the output parameter. That's the second thing. Update view method, very important. When something in the property bag changes, I'll again repeat, when something in the property bag changes, this goes ahead and triggers. What do I mean by that? I mean, okay, it's gone down. I will have to go ahead and do an npm start watch. I'll just quickly do that. When something in the property bag, you remember we created properties, when something there changes, what it will happen is that this will trigger. I told you about the get output, it's the output, and finally npm destroy, which came up. So something here changes, this will change, okay? That's what I mean by changing when something, well, when is the update view fires, right? We can control that. And finally, the destroy method is the cleanup method. So if you want to clean up something, this is where you're going to go ahead and write your code. I want to quickly go back into none other than my slide just for a minute. I'll not go in more than a minute out here. We created the input components, okay? We can pass in the base 64 in Power Apps, how we are doing it. I showed you the Power Automate. That's how we are doing it. Now we need to go ahead and build the SDK, convert file from base 64 to array buffer, other way around, and pass it back. That's what we are going to achieve in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So what I am going to do out here, I am going to seriously cheat. When I say seriously cheat, I'm going to copy some code, because if I type this code, you'll be here till midnight. Or perhaps from where you're joining is already midnight. So it might be morning for you, right? I don't want to do that. I don't want to take away your Friday, right? I think your Friday is important. So I created a nutrient.tsx file. So I'm going to copy paste some code out here, and this is how it is. So I'm going to first get the prerequisites. I'm going to have React and the Nutrient SDK imported. If you see, Copilot, my friend, is starting to kick in. But no, I'm not going to use Copilot as of now. We created these particular I would say these particular, let me actually do this. I get distracted because for some reason, when this is working in my background, my computer starts making noise. But here, if you see, I have created an interface and I'm going ahead and importing these properties out here. Very important. This is how you go ahead and reference the properties interface, and these are the props. If I quickly go back to the slide, what we wanted to do is we wanted to go ahead and have two methods out here. One is to convert base64 to array buffer and convert array buffer to base64. How did I get this method? I asked ChatGPT. ChatGPT gave me these lines of code, right? I'm going to share this code with you. And this code is very simple. It converts the base64 to array buffer. So if you're thinking, why is Clavin not explaining this code? Just copy this code, go back into ChatGPT and ask it to explain. It will do a better job than what I try to explain on this live demo. ChatGPT gave me this code. Okay. Now that being said, I do the other way around. I convert array buffer to base64 using this method. Now that this has been created, right? I want to create, it's telling me to go ahead and create a functional component. I can hit tab and I can actually create that because I have got some code already which I have tested, right? And finally, I'll come back to that code and how I created it, but I'll finally export the nutrient viewer. Now, if you look at this code, the functional component, right? Let me actually get some more real estate out here so that I can explain you. This is a functional component. What it does, it takes input parameters. It takes parameters such as the file content, the width, height, and the on save. On save is a callback, right? We are going to, when somebody clicks on the save button, it will go ahead and return me the base 64-bit string. That's what I'm doing. I'm going ahead and creating an HTML div element. For a component to work, this is very, very, very important that you go ahead and have a div element or a container and then append a child to the container. Similarly, our component, or you can say that our viewer, also needs a div element where we are going to hook it up, and that div element will be the place where it will load the document or the PDF. I'm using React hooks such as useState to maintain the state of an instance. Now, what's an instance? For example, when you load the document, it creates an instance. That means you can work with the document. You can add annotations to it. You can add signatures to it, etc., etc., right? So that's an instance, and I need to maintain the state of an instance. I'm using the use effect hook such that it is only changed when the base 64-bit is passed in, right? That's the logic that I have written out here. If there is no diff element, just go back. If base 64-bit is empty, just unload it. You need to load an instance and you need to also unload the instance. Always remember, you unload the instance out here. The reason is if there's an existing instance, it will give you an error if it's there. So you need to unload it. Finally, I'm using a try and a catch block such that I can load the file here. I'm loading the file out here. This is my container. This is the CDN. Now you'll say, Clavin, how do you know all of this, right? How do you know all of this? I didn't know all of this. This guide helped me. Nutrient provides excellent guides. Okay, that's first thing that you need to understand. So if you know to read code, you'll be able to write code. I just say that, okay? As simple as that. If you know to read code, you can take this sample and make it your own, right? The icing on the cake is that there's an Ask AI thing as well on the right corner. So if I say, what is the CDN for web standalone, right? It will go ahead and give me responses. So this particular website is also AI enabled, right? And if you see, it actually gives me the CDN. It tells me what CDN it is and how I can go ahead and use it. Uh, but that being said, I got this code from their website, right? I got this code from their website. I am proficient in Nutrient. I'll not go ahead and say that I am new to Nutrient because I'm a solution engineer. If you get stuck with anything in this particular code, reach out to me, right? Reach out to support, reach out to our team. We are good people. Okay, trust me. I am a good person. We will help you out. Okay, that's all I can say. And trust me, I'm telling this live, so I need to go ahead and be a good person as well. So I will help you as well. So here, if you see, I am creating a new instance and I'm loading the document. I'm giving it a CDN path. And here, if you see, I am having a save button out here. I'm loading the viewer and I'm returning this particular instance. Okay. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to go to the index file and let's start copy pasting some code to the index file as well. So to the index file, the first thing that I need to do, I need to go ahead and import my component, right? I'm going to import this component. That's what I'm going to do. I have the notify output change, but I also need to go ahead and hook up my container because this is going to be the starting point, right? This is where my component will initialize. If I go back to the control manifest file, this is the first file that will load. That is the index file. So I have my HTML div out here. I need to go ahead and return the PDF. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and return the PDF. Now that I have some things hooked up here, what I want to do when my component first initializes, right? I first need to manage the state of my component, which is already out here. That's excellent. Second, I'm going to go ahead and have my container hooked up. Whenever it's initialized, the first thing that I need is my container. I have a void out here, so I'm going to go ahead and say this container is equals to container, right? Now coming to the update view method, right? I'm going to paste in some code out here, okay? And then we'll talk about that. So first, the create element. I want to use my nutrient element out here, right? I want to use my nutrient element. What I'm going to do is I'm going to X out of it and I'm going to say I want to use this particular element. It's giving me an error, right? Because I have not imported. I don't have the base 64-bit string that I am referencing out here. So let me put that. I don't have an handle save method. I want to create an handle save method. What does it do? It saves the document and it returns it back. So I'm going to paste it here, right? So what does it do? It converts, it notifies that my output has changed and I will save it back. Understand this, if you are new to React component, this is where you need to go ahead and write your code. If you're starting with React components, if you don't understand React, I have a full-fledged tutorial series which talks about a normal React component which you can create with HTML and JavaScript. So I will point you to that. Just DM me. Finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in some more logic out here which tells if the component is updated, not updated, right? What you do is that -1 stands for not. Uh, don't re-render the component. That's what it is doing. Or else, even if something small changes, it will re-render the component, right? That's not something that we want to happen. Now, that being said, I have the handle save out here. I want to return the output. And where will we return the output? We will return the output out here. We'll return the PDF document and we'll use this .base64 out here. And we will just try to run our code. Before we run our code, let me pray a Hail Mary, because what really happens, this is where things might go wrong. This is something that I don't want to happen, right? Or else I will cry because it's nearly the end of our demo. And if something goes wrong, we have to debug. You know, I think I should have prayed two Hail Marys, not one, two, because this broke. Okay, so when I say this broke, I broke rules, right? That's what it is. If you look at these errors minutely, I broke rules. The rules are the ESLint rules. I broke rules, so I need to go ahead and bluff, puff, and go ahead and say, if there are ESLint rules, which are these, I should just turn off the errors. It just means turning off the errors, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. To do a control S, do an npm run build again. So let's see if the demo gods are happy with me or maybe not. This is the place where time where I should be a bit silent. Come on, you can do it. ESLint, it's at ESLint. Let me see if there were any other errors. I didn't see any other errors out here. It said collapsing, unsafe returns. That's fine. We'll get around it. So all the errors that were there were related to ESLint. So let it load. In the meantime, when it's trying to build itself, I'll go back here. And if you are new to Power Platform, admin.power platform or the Power Platform Admin Center, you need to go ahead and enable custom code components. If you see, my computer is getting really slow right now. So let's hope that this works. So here it is, admin.powerplatform.com. So I'm going to the administration portal, right? So if you're trying to use the code component in your Canvas apps, you need to make sure that you have this enabled. As this is getting built in the background, it is moving ahead. So it's good. It's gone to Babel. And here, if you see what I want to show you, you need to select the environment where you want this to happen. I'll select my developer environment, not my actual environment. For example, I want to use this code component. To use this code component, you need to enable a feature which is by default turned off. It's under environment, settings, features. If I scroll down, you need to enable the Power Apps component framework feature, right? This is where you need to go ahead and allow it. Once you allow it, you can go ahead and import your code components. You'll find this icon. When you click on this icon, you find another tab known as code, right? You can use this. That's where you are going to go ahead and import the code component. And I'll say hallelujah because we didn't get an error. It took time, but it didn't give an error. So that's good. I can smile a little, I think. And I'm going to do an npm start watch. If you want me to write code line by line, right, I think what you can do is send me a DM, or we are going to have this published on YouTube. Go ahead and write a comment. Clavin, write this code line by line. I will write the code line by line for you, okay? It will be a 1.5 or a 2-hour session, right? If you think we should do that, we will do that as well. I'm happy to do that. So now what I'm trying to do, I am going to go ahead and try to launch this particular component in my local workbench, right? It's trying to launch it in the local workbench. So let me quickly go ahead and see that. If anybody has questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. So let me see. I don't see any sessions as of such. We need to wrap up real quick, but we have a hard stop in 7 minutes. That's what I can say. So, but I think we should be able to build our code, and we should be able to package our code, and I should be able to import this code as well. So npm start watch is coming up, and if you see, it's trying to load the component, and voila, right? Now you know what I did last weekend. I went to Legoland with my kid, right? I used the wrong example document, but here I have passed in the value and it has rendered the document in the nutrient viewer. Mm-hmm. You learned something new, right? You learned how to integrate an SDK into a PCF, and now you're going to learn much more. I have to be a little bit quick. We have to a hard stop. So here I have created my component. It renders. I didn't have to debug it. If you want to learn about debugging, you can add the debugger, add a breakpoint, and then debug code line by line. Okay, that's what you want to do. So what I'm going to do next is that I want to package this code and put it in my Power Apps solution, right? I am going to type this. I am keeping on going up arrow, and I cannot find that particular thing. So I'm going to create a folder named as solutions. If you want, you can name your folder a little bit better. I'm going to CD it into a solution. Now, next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the pack command. Why am I going to use the pack command? Because I want to go ahead and create a solution out of it. So if you see, pack command gives you solution, and the solution is used for working with Dataverse. If you want to use solutions, you should have Dataverse, right? Because Dataverse is the back end of, or you can say the data platform of Power Apps. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste in one line of code out here. I'll say copy and I'll paste. So here I tell create a solution, initialize it. The publisher name will be Clavin Fernandes. My name, I'm the publisher, and the publisher prefix will be Clav, right? And next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say reveal in File Explorer. I'm going to copy this path, keep it handy with me, and I'm going to add a reference. Now, how do I add the reference? Again, using the pack solution command, I add a reference to this particular folder. So once I add the reference, if the demo gods are happy, which they are, it tells me project reference successfully added to the Dataverse project. At this point, I can use the MS Build tools. I already have them here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, right? I'm going to CD, enter. It didn't go there. So I have to type in D. Now it's in there. I'm going to go ahead and say MS Build T restore, right? I will MS Build it. So it will go ahead and build my project, and it built the project, so that's good. And then I'm going to hit the MS Build such that it creates a solution package, right? That's very important. If you see, it's creating an output directory with debug, OBJ. This is not a managed solution as of now. It's an unmanaged solution. You can create your own managed solution if you want to avoid software drift, right? And there's a different command for that. Again, it's going through the same build process behind the scene. It's checking for ESLint. Hopefully we'll not get any errors because we have said ESLint, ignore everything that we have done wrong as of now, or the variables or the set of rules. It doesn't mean that our code is wrong. I've just added exceptions because I was copy pasting code, and at times it creates some problems, right? That's what it does. So it's building it, right? Let it build it. ESLint. And once it builds it, it should be good. We should have a package. We have around 3 to 4 minutes. I am cautious about the time, but it just seems that my computer is making sound. It's trying. It's trying to be fast. Do you know whenever we start a car, right? It's like drrrr sound. It's trying. It's eating a lot of resources, but I hope that we will be there. So let's wait. The only thing that we can do is wait and pray. Oh, okay. So it built itself. So if you see, the solution is in this particular folder. So if I go here into this particular folder, which I have revealed in Explorer, right? Let's see the folder path. It's in solution, bin, debug, and solution.zip. All I need to do is right click, copy as path, go into make.powerapps.com, right? makes.powerapps.com. And I go into solutions, 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 solutions. Come on, my friend, go into solutions and I will have to import this particular solution like this, right? I will have to import the solution. I can import the solution. After importing the solution, I need to publish this solution. Now, this might take approximately 1 minute, 2 minutes or so. But once you have the solution, you will see the solution like this, right? This is how the solution will look like. So once you have the solutions imported, what you can do is you can go into your Power Apps, create your Canvas app, and then what you can do is that you can click on this button. You'll see all your code components here. In fact, this is the code component which I created just before the demo. It's exactly the same code. I click on it and I click on import. Once I click on import, you will find the code component out here. Click on it. It will be added to your screen like this. And then you need to wire up the base 64-bit string. And once you do that, you can use it in your Power Apps. Now this failed because there is a duplicate code component. I can get rid of this and I can import it again. But I can tell you that it would work. I will share the code at the end of this, not the end of this week. It's already the weekend. Early next week. Okay, early next week, I will share the code. Feel free to play with the code sample. Feel free to give us feedback and we are here to assist you. I'll stop sharing and I would say thank you once again for whoever has attended. I hope that it worked well for you. I promise I'll share the code sample and I'll also submit the same to the PCF gallery. Thank you once again for your time. And with this, we'll say happy weekend from Nutrient and ppug.org. We love you and see you in the next session. Bye.